Hey everyone, we're back for part 4, the final part of our least wonderful time of the year series. Today we're talking about getting and staying in your body during the holidays. You might be sitting here wondering why I'm talking about getting and staying in our body. Is it some sort of supernatural thing? Why do we care about this? Well, for a lot of us, our response to high stress is what's called dissociation. So, we're going to talk about what dissociation is and why we do it, and then how we can practice getting and staying in our bodies when things are stressful. And we have a wonderful treat for you today. Jordan Marciano is here to do a yin class with you. So she'll teach you all about what it means to be in our bodies and how to do that in a way that's really accessible and a gentle practice. So for those who haven't watched the other videos or don't know me, I'm Jena Plummer. I am a licensed clinical mental health counselor, a licensed clinical addiction specialist, and a certified trauma specialist. And I'm also the owner of Little C Counseling. I work with addiction, trauma, dysfunctional family systems, complex trauma, and I do so both virtually and in person. We know how hard this time of year can be for people, whether you're struggling with anxiety or depression, whether you're missing someone that you've lost during the year, or whether you just have some really difficult or dysfunctional dynamics with friends and family. We want to give you some education and skills that you can use to support yourself through this season and also offer up support and solidarity as you're navigating this. One of the beautiful things about being human is that we have a very well developed system to keep us alive. We do one of four things in the face of threat or danger: we fight, we run, we freeze, or we fawn, which means we do whatever we need to do to make sure that that other person is happy enough so that they don't harm us. And when we feel really stuck or really helpless, the freeze response is most common for us. And so we may physically be frozen, but our brain is going somewhere else to help us survive because what's happening to us is so unimaginable that our system knows we can't deal with it. When this happens, we start to lose touch with reality. We question our sense of identity. We lose connection with our body or our memories. We may even feel like we're not ourselves. And we call this dissociation. So you may have heard of dissociation before. It's linked to trauma, and specifically childhood trauma. There was a study by Wang, and what they did is they looked at cases of dissociative identity disorder in the United States, Canada, and Europe. And they found that 90% of people with dissociative identity disorder experience childhood abuse and neglect. So essentially, as helpless children, because we don't have the ability to get out of most situations, we learned, and obviously this is not a conscious process, but we learned to freeze and to go somewhere else in our mind, a place that's safer than what's actually happening in front of us. I just want to be clear, this can be really subtle. So if you've ever experienced a moment of distraction, a daydream, feeling like you're having a conversation with someone, but you're not really present, that's what dissociation looks like. There's different forms and there's a spectrum of severity with dissociation, but that in its basic form, there's something we can't tolerate, and so we go somewhere else in our head. Many people don't realize that they're actually dissociating until much later in life when someone's able to identify it and point it out. And some of the biggest problems with dissociation for folks are the way they interact in their relationships because of the distractions and because they're not able to be present. It's really hard to form these meaningful connections and keep long-lasting relationship. Now, for many people, there might not be, as adults at least, immediate threat in front of them. They may not actually be in danger. But stress and feeling overwhelmed can present like that in the body. So, holidays are a super high risk time for folks because there's so much stress and demand on the system that the tendency to want to go somewhere else that feels safer is much higher. And for many of us, we're spending the holidays with our family of origin or with the people who we felt neglected or abused by. My hope for many of you is that you've set boundaries so you don't have to do that. But in subtler cases where the trauma isn't as severe, it's very common for someone to go rejoin their family of origin and start to feel all these feelings that they haven't felt in a long time come up. So that's part of why we talk about that today is we want to make sure that you know how to identify dissociation and you can practice some skills to get you back in your body when you do feel like you're separating from that. So here are some ways to identify if you're experiencing dissociation. And like I said, most of the time someone else may be able to identify these things in you better than you are because you're actually dissociating in that moment. So, some ways that we dissociate, we space out. You might have a glazed or blank look on your face. Your mind might go blank, so you might be mid conversation, not be able to recall words or events. You may start to see your mind wander, so you might be having a conversation that triggers a traumatic memory, and instead of going there, you might be thinking about your to do list. Another thing that happens is a sense of the world not being real. So we call this derealization. And this is what happens in extreme stress because we feel like what's going on isn't actually happening. The other side of that depersonalization is when we feel like we're actually watching ourselves from outside of the body. Again, this is more of an example of extreme stress response than what we would see sort of in your average day-to-day dissociation, but it's important for us to talk about this so that if you notice these things happening, you can see what's going on. You might feel out of body, disconnected from your surroundings. I like to say for a lot of us, we might be existing kind of from the neck up versus connected to our body. So if I asked you, how do you feel right now? Most people probably wouldn't say, I feel my cheeks flush or my palms sweating. You might say, I'm really scared right now, not really have that connection to the body. You might also feel a numbness or lack of sensation. That's also pretty common. You might also have what we call a flat affect. So a flat affect just means we don't appear happy, sad, angry. We're just flat or blunted. And with that can often come a monotone voice. So there's no change in the conversation you're having. Nothing excites you. It's just very flat. And we see this a lot with depression as well. The duration of symptoms can decide whether this is an episode or if this is a true disorder. So, for the purposes of this presentation, just recognizing that your job is just to track this and you can talk to your therapist about whether or not this qualifies for a disorder or a diagnosis. So, because so much of this connects to us being outside of our body, not being able to connect to what's actually happening in the moment, we want to do some work on learning how to recognize what's going on in our body, paying attention to it. So, next, we're going to let Jordan, she's a functional yoga teacher, a functional movement yoga teacher. She is absolutely incredible, and she's located in northern New Jersey, but she offers virtual consultations and classes that you can take as well. You can find her information out at jordanmarciano.com, and I'll put that in the notes on our YouTube page.
Hi, everyone. I am Jordan Marciano. I am a yoga and movement teacher and a human anatomy educator. And I'm going to share a super short but effective yin yoga practice with you today. You can take this practice and do it over and over again, or you can take one or two poses that feel good, that you like, that you enjoy, and do them pretty much whenever you need them at any point of the day. So Yin, just as a quick little background before we get started, Yin yoga is an intuitively designed practice based on Chinese medicine that creates a really deep and intimate physical and emotional connection with our body. It goes way beyond muscle, goes way deeper into connective tissue, fascia, bones, joints, ligaments, tendons, all of that way deeper stuff in the body to create stability, to create quiet, to create wholeness. And by holding these poses for a few minutes each in a sustainable fashion, so meaning nothing painful, nothing difficult, should be nice and easy and smooth on the body, on the joints, it allows your system to quiet itself at its own pace. And it really helps you get to know what your body needs in quiet. So it doesn't force anything in terms of movement or sensation or even breath, and more so allows you to be the mover of everything. So you get to choose, what feels good and how long to stay there. So before we get into it for today, I just want you to grab some props. So it honestly doesn't have to be anything fancy or special. If you have a couple pillows you can grab from your couch, even a couch cushion would work really well, something that's a little bit more like stable and hefty. Maybe a blanket or two that you can roll up. If you have yoga blocks at home, that's great. If not, anything that you can use to kind of put under you and get comfortable in these poses will work. I've seen people use rolled up sweatshirts, rolled up cardigans, pillows from the couch, like I said, anything that you have laying around. So if you want to pause this for a second and go get some stuff, please feel free to do so. If you're ready to go, we'll get going. So I want to start today, or whenever you're doing this, by just kind of shaking out the body a little bit, because like I said, Yin is quiet and still. So you're in the poses for a few minutes, and the practice we're going to do today is postures that can soothe a nervous system. So kind of down regulation for the nervous system. So if the nervous system is already in a little bit of a frenzy, you might want to shake it out a little bit first. So we'll start seated wherever you are. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. And just start to move a little bit. So maybe through the wrists. Like I said, it does not have to be fancy at all. Take a couple breaths. They don't have to be anything special. Just kind of notice where your breath is at right now. Maybe it's shallow, maybe it's a little bit deeper. We're not judging it, we're just experiencing it. A couple shoulder rolls, shoulder shakes, shoulder wiggles. You can move the spine in and out. In the yoga practice, we call this cat and cow, right? So moving through the spine, rolling forward, rolling back. And you can do this at your own pace. It doesn't have to be on the breath. Like I said, just kind of shaking out, right? To start out, getting out any loose nervous energy. Maybe a couple little twists. You might take the legs out in front and do the same thing with the feet. Wiggling out, move the hips a little. Put it all together. If you feel silly, that's okay. And let's start to slow it down. Maybe come back to just the wrists or even just the fingers, and just observe how the body feels right now, how the mind feels right now. Yin should not be painful. It should not be uncomfortable. The very nature of the practice is down regulation, right? Nervous system down regulation, which means you're in control. You're in the driver's seat of, how much sensation you feel, how long you stay there. So even if I'm asking you to stay in a pose for, 3 minutes, if after a minute and a half, you're like, I've had enough, then you come out and just find stillness somewhere else, maybe laying on your back, laying on the belly, laying on the side, whatever works. Let's just start to cultivate that stillness. So let the whole body settle. If it feels safe, you can let the eyes close. If that doesn't feel right for today, you can just sort of look down towards your mat or towards the floor beyond your legs. And just observe your breath. Again, we're not judging the breath. We're not expecting anything of the breath. And we're going to do a couple of poses today. We're going to keep them short for this practice, especially if it is a newer practice for you. You don't want to get too deep into staying in stuff for too long. So we want to get the system used to it. We want to get the body used to it. I want to get the brain in on it too, kind of allow them all to connect without too much time, right? So we'll start with short 3-minute poses. We're going to start with a child's pose today. So this is where a couch cushion or a big pillow will come in really nicely. If you have that, or whatever it is that you're using, you can put it in front of you. You're going to take your knees nice and wide, comfortable width, not too far where you feel too much on the inner thighs, but just wide enough that you have enough stability, enough comfort to pull that bolster, pillow, whatever you have, a little bit closer, and then just lay over your pillow, draping the body. As you start to settle into the pose, see if you can scan the body. Notice if and where there's any tension that you're feeling, any resistance. Maybe you're holding your shoulders really tight up towards your ears. Maybe you're clenching your fists or your toes. See if you can soften that, release it. Think more of melting over this pillow or whatever it is that you're using. Don't be afraid to shift if you do have any discomfort. So moving the feet, taking the knees closer, wider, whatever you feel works is sustainable for the next 2 minutes or so. Let the breath stay easy, stay natural, neutral. We're going to stay here for about 1 more minute. And as I mentioned earlier, yin transcends our muscles. It goes way deeper than our muscles. So we want to try not to get the muscles too involved here. So as you start to come up from this pose, bring the hands down on the floor. Try not to use the core. So try to use as little effort as possible, using the hands to just kind of roll up through the spine. You can move your prop off to the side. And just come to sit back on the heels for a couple breaths. Try to resist the urge to move. You might feel like you want to shake it out a little bit. We'll get there. See if you can just let the hips melt back towards the heels. Maybe let the head fall back. And observe any sensation in the body. As long as there's no pain, there's no right or wrong answer here. You might feel a lot, you might feel nothing. Both of those are fine. Give yourself permission here to experience whatever it is you are or aren't experiencing. And then maybe move a little bit, come back to that in and out of the spine. Nice and slow as we transition into a different posture. We're going to come into what's called a dragonfly. Again, another short 3-minute pose. As you feel ready, you can just kind of cross the shins underneath you, come to sit, or whichever way is easiest to get there. We're going to take our prop with us, and a big pillow or cushion is really helpful here. And we're going to sit in nice, easy straddles. Doesn't have to be really intense, doesn't have to be super wide. Okay? We're going to bring our prop a little bit closer to us. Make sure that the feet are soft, right? So sometimes the tendency when we sit like this is to flex really strong, but keep everything soft. If the feet turn in, let them turn in. If they roll out, let them roll out. And then we're just going to fold over our prop. If this is too much, you can take your pillow, hug it, and just relax like this. Again, as you start to settle into this pose, scan through the body for any gripping tension that you feel, any resistance that you feel. Keep the feet soft, keep the legs nice and soft. Let your hips get heavy onto the floor. Let the shoulders roll forward or wherever it is that you feel they land comfortably. If you're hugging your pillow, make sure you're not gripping anywhere with your hand. Just let the hands rest nice and soft. No muscle engagement. Once again, giving yourself permission to exist in this moment exactly as you are. Remind yourself to breathe. And if you'd like to focus a little bit more on the breathing, you can go in through the nose, out through the mouth. And take just about one more minute here. And as we start to finish out this pose, remember once again, try not to use too much muscle. So release the prop. And then again, you can just place the hands on the legs, on the floor, And just roll up through the spine. Maybe bring the legs a little bit closer to something more neutral. And we'll find those couple breaths of quiet. One more time, just observing any sensation in the body. It shows up in different places for everybody, so I can't tell you exactly where you might be feeling something. It's possible to be feeling something in the chest, in the shoulders, in the back of the legs, the inner thighs. Like I said before, none of it is right or wrong. This is why yin is such an intimate relationship with the body, because it is a different experience for everybody. And again, if you want to move a little bit, you can roll the feet, roll the shoulders. We're going to start to recline for our last two poses, three if you count, the one on each side. So we'll start to make our way down, coming down onto the spine with the knees bent. So feet on the floor, knees bent, pointing up. And we'll keep our pillow outside the left hip, so left side of the body. Just roll it down. You're always welcome to support the head if you want to put something underneath the back of your head. And we'll come in for a twist here. So keeping the spine on the ground, we're just going to pull the knees in. It doesn't have to be too tight. Just lift them up a little bit. You might scoot the hips over to the right, and then just let both legs fall to the left. If you don't like the prop underneath them, you're more than welcome to remove it. Getting a little bit of a twist into the low back. Resting your hands wherever they're comfortable. Coming into our final minute here. And whenever you are ready, we'll just start to bring this twist to the other side. So bring the knees back through neutral. Place the feet on the floor. Maybe scoot the hips to the left just a little bit. And then let the legs fall to the right. Let the knees fall to the right. It is not abnormal for the two sides of the body to feel different. So if you need to prop differently, or if this side feels completely different, that is completely fine. Coming into our last minute here. And we'll start to shift the knees back through to the center. One more time, landing in what we call constructive rest. So feet flat on the floor, knees pointing up. And you can scoot all your props out of the way. We're going to move into our Shavasana, or final resting pose. So you are welcome to take your final rest in any position that feels right, that feels stable, that feels safe. So for some, that might be laying on the back, the way I am right now with the knees pointing up. You can extend the legs if you want. For others, that might be laying on the side, laying on the belly, doing something seated with the back against the wall. Whatever feels safe and sustainable for you today, that is the position for your final resting pose that I would like you to take. Take your time getting there. Make yourself as comfortable as possible in whatever position that you have chosen. It should feel easy, right? We're not really worried about how this one looks or feels as much as we are looking to completely decompress, right? To let the body get really heavy on the floor wherever it is. Let the breath continue to move in and out. Observe one more time how the mind and body feel together, how the body feels on its own, and how the brain feels on its own. Again, giving yourself permission to experience the practice however you experienced it. We're not judging it. That's why it's a practice, right? Because every time we do it, it feels different. It is not meant to be mastered. It's not meant to be perfected. It is meant to exist exactly as it is in that moment, just like us. From wherever you are right now, in whatever position you're in, I'd like you to really slowly, really easily make your way up to a seated position. Take your time, move when the body is ready. Again, try to keep that theme of not using too much muscle. So really lightly kind of press your way up until you're seated. You can sit cross-legged, legs can be out in front, doesn't really matter. Maybe one more time, the eyes close, or just gently look down towards the floor. Big breath in, big breath out through the mouth. Taking what feels good for this practice, letting go of the stuff that maybe was new or uncomfortable, and then showing up the next time with the same new eyes and ears as you did for this one. Like I said, you can take this practice and do the whole thing if you enjoyed it, or you can pick and choose one or two of the poses that we did. You can stay in them longer. You can do them whenever you feel like your body needs them. You can do them in bed, you can do them laying on the couch, and go from there and see how you feel with adding a little bit of time to each of them or one of them. And as always, I thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you so much, everyone.
Just a reminder, if this was helpful to you, visit our website, littleseedcounseling.com, for resources, to sign up for our mailing list, or if you need some, to sign up for reduced cost therapy with one of our interns. We're always doing something new and always offering something for the community, so we hope that you'll follow along. And we hope that you have a beautiful and restful holiday season.